Shoana Jensen is here with your comprehensive plan. And I love this. When I thought we're doing weddings, Shoana should talk about this. You're uber organized, and this is actually one occasion where you really need to be organized. You're going to be freaking out on the day when you're supposed to be relaxed.
Totally. Yeah.
So if you are at least organized, you can enjoy your day.
That's the whole point. You know what, frankly, even if you're not organized, when the day gets there, just enjoy it, because what's going to happen is going to happen.
True.
It's easier said than done. I do understand. I practice what I preach at my own wedding. I had so much fun at my own wedding. I didn't care once the day came what I was supposed to do or what I wasn't supposed to do. My sister dropped the top of my wedding cake. Hi, Rhonda. Yeah, you did. Did not care at all. Did not care at all. I was like, whatever. We had fun. So really, like, it is a very important day to all of us. But try and take a deep breath, exhale, and just live in that moment. Because when things like that happen, what are you going to do? Get upset about it? How's that going to make your day better?
Yeah.
But in the planning stages, it's really stressful. Budget. Money. It's like, that's the number one argument of couples when they are married. And here you are starting your wedding when you're going to have this kind of extra stress on it.
Yeah.
So we all think we want the Kim Kardashian type wedding.
Yeah.
Actually, I had an old hairdresser that used to say the bigger the wedding, the shorter the marriage. Totally true, because that was like 45 days. Anyway, so here are some tips and ways. I did event management for many years. So here are some things that sound like obvious tips to cut back on your wedding budget without compromising your vision for your wedding. Okay. So the first one I would say is cut the guest list. Duh, no brainer, right? Everyone, that's like, well, yeah, that's an obvious thing. So obviously that's going to cut back on your meals. It'll cut back on your bar bill, which we'll get to that in a little bit. But think also, that'll cut back on the amount of tables. So that means the amount of tablecloths, the amount of table settings that you're renting, the amount of centerpieces that you have to order.
Yes.
So it's more than just the obvious food and beverage, because that's where our mind go when you're cutting back a list. And you know what? Again, my wedding, it was a long time ago, but my rule, the first time we did the list, I was like 300 and something. I did not want a wedding that big at all.
Yeah.
And we said, if I haven't talked to you in a year, there's a reason. You're off the list.
Right.
And that was like pretty much included family. There was one or two exceptions, of course.
Yeah.
There always is. One friend lived in Tuck, literally.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't talk to him. But that was pretty much the guideline we used. And man, did it cut right down to 100 people like that. So you'll be surprised.
Yeah, it is a harder thing to do in reality than in theory to cut that list.
For
because
sure.
there are so many pressures. I know for me, you know, it was also my parents' party.
Yes, it is.
Because they put money into it. So am I going to tell them they can't bring their friends from work, or, you know, those certain aunts and uncles that might have been out of your life for a while? So it's a very delicate negotiation.
Totally, and that's like a whole nother segment / therapy session right there.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure, that's a
Absolutely.
big. But when it comes to budgeting, that's a really good place.
Huge.
Outside the food, outside the alcohol, table size. So that also gets to the next point. Consider using at your wedding larger tables. So if you're doing 6 tops, think of 8 tops. If you're doing 8 tops, think of 10 tops.
Right.
Because, again, less centerpieces. So you're cutting back on the budget with that. You're doing that, depending on the venue, if you're renting your tables, you're renting less tables. There's, like, those things have a trickle-down effect. So think of how you can adjust those type of elements when it comes to your wedding.
Okay.
Also think off-season. So if you unless it was your lifelong goal to have a June wedding, like I literally have to get married in June or I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Consider, you know, a winter wedding. I actually got married in February because I didn't care about a summer wedding. Yeah, and I figured everyone's busy in the summer. Nobody has anything to do in February, so let's have a wedding.
Right.
But if you're in a rural area and you do golf course weddings, that's where I'm from. A lot of people have them at country clubs. Well, summer's peak, you're going to charge the most.
Yes.
But in the middle of the winter, if they're still open for their restaurant, they'll charge you much less.
Okay.
So that'll also, time of year will also fluctuate your budget as well.
Was it much more difficult for you as a bride getting out there in the cold weather, or no big deal? You're going from car to church or a car to
no, and I'm from Ottawa. I got married in Ottawa, where it's like winter all the time.
It's freezing.
It was totally freezing, but actually I liked it because we got to wear. My dress was a brocade. It was heavier fabrics. All the men were comfortable in their suits and weren't sweating because it was 40 degrees.
That's true.
We had dark colors like burgundies and stuff like that. It's just a different type of wedding. So I actually loved it.
That's
so think of that. Yeah. And when it comes to your centerpieces, consider this fabulously stunning, gorgeous centerpiece. It's got lots and lots of flowers. Think of a centerpiece that has more greens than flowers.
Cheaper.
Because greens are cheaper than flowers. So think of that when it comes to your centerpiece, or incorporate items that aren't floral, like a lantern. You can rent a little lantern in the middle, or a hurricane, or something of that, more candles, something like that. So you'll cut down on the expenses of your florals and your greens.
What about going partially faux? Come on. They look really good these days. I actually wish if I could go back, that's the one thing I would change, the floral. way too much money. We spent way too much money.
Yeah,
And at
it's
the end of
huge.
the day, how many people are smelling every single pew in your church? Is that real or is that faux?
Okay. See, they're the people you haven't talked to in over a year, and they shouldn't be at your wedding. Exactly. You know, I can do it again. It's so true. I would say my personal opinion on that is go more green than faux.
Okay.
But that's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
And then a really easy place to cut back is consider a different type of wedding, maybe an evening cocktail ceremony, maybe a
Right.
brunch. That's a very much a trend thing. People are even doing barbecues for really casual.
Whoa.
And your bar bill doesn't always have to be champagne.
Yeah.
Sparkling wine is the same thing as champagne. It is
for
just
sure.
not made in Champagne, France.
Yeah.
There are outstanding cavas, proseccos, and sparkling wines, so you can still celebrate, but don't have to pay the champagne prices.
Yes.
If you don't have the budget.
Cash bar or open bar?
Oh, honey, we do not have enough time to talk about that. That is a whole nother
The
segment as
short
well.
answer is open bar. Okay,
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
on. Do it right. Let's go to break. Great advice. More coming up.